Welcome to Lake Erie Church's new podcast series called Between Sundays. In this series of the podcast, the desire of our hearts is to help you deepen your relationship with God. So each week, we will have a more in-depth discussion on the sermon message from the previous week. Our objective is to show you how to apply this week's message to your life so that you can live more completely by faith between Sundays. Now, on to the podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the podcast of Between Sundays with Sherry Capolet and Pastor Bill Isaacs. Today we're talking a little bit more about the book of Galatians. And where we left off this past Sunday was Pastor delivered a sermon message on the book of Galatians that he titled Spiritual Leaders. And so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about that a bit more as it relates to what it is that Pastor is helping us to see more completely and to walk out more completely in our Christian lives as it relates to transformation and spiritual leaders. And so, Pastor, I'd like to just talk to you about the importance of having spiritual leaders, the importance of transformation in our lives as it relates to what you've shown us in the book of Galatians. And if you don't mind, what I'd like to specifically address is the scripture that you shared with us on Sunday, which is Galatians 6:15. And in Galatians 6:15, the point is really that God cares about our transformation and that He's made a way for us to be transformed through His power, through His grace. Tell us a little bit about what you're really wanting us to understand about this transformation in our lives.
Well, listen, I think as I've gotten older, I really have bought into the idea that we come to Christ personally, individually. Salvation is a personal and individual experience, but we live it out in a community. We live it out in connection to the people that we engage with, the people who are in our lives. I wrote a book several years ago entitled The Life Worth Living. And in that book, I talked about all the people that I notice in Paul's letters. If you notice how specifically he has all these people that he wants to, this person says hello, this guy says he greets you. He wanted you to know those people were with him because I think he's teaching us something, that we are saved personally, but we live it out in community with each other. So God is sending people into my life and your life all the time. And if you pay attention, and this is the example I've used often, if you pay attention, there are people that walked into your life years ago and they stayed forever. And then there are people that came in for a little while, and then you woke up one day and like, wow, I haven't talked to that guy in a long time. And I've come to believe from my experience that these people are assigned to us in order to help us complete our assignment. So these people that are a part of your life are there because they're supposed to help you live out the faith experience, and they have something to contribute, or you have something to contribute to them, and God brings them close so that you can teach, you can help. And one of the things that I was very intrigued in the study of Galatians is this passage here in chapter 2 where Paul is talking about the spiritual leaders of the Jerusalem church. So, he's out here ministering to the Gentiles, these missionary journeys, and then he stops and he goes to Jerusalem and he meets with those leaders there. And I love this phrase, Sherry. It says, I just wanted to make sure that we were in agreement. It's just like everybody needs somebody in their life to hold them accountable, somebody to protect them. We talked a couple weeks ago about the undercurrent in the ocean, how it drags you out.
It does.
And so you need people in your life. Like, think about it like a lifeguard.
Yeah, I love that.
A lifeguard is a person who is there, and his job is to protect you from being pulled out too far so that your life becomes in danger. And I think in our church here, because we're an elder constructed congregation, our elders have a real responsibility, according to the word of the New Testament, to watch for the flock, to protect the flock, to help us in that regard. So that's the focus of what we're trying to say.
And I think it's important that you're teaching us this because, especially in this culture that we live in, where we can be easily just staying at home and having a spiritual experience of our own accord and not really have somebody to balance us out. And I think you said this in the message that, you have to seek out these spiritual leaders. You have to, step into allowing somebody to serve in that kind of role in your life, and that's important to do so that you can have that balance. Otherwise, it's just easy to stay comfortable and be at home and not have that.
Yeah, you've just said a mouthful.
Yeah.
You really have, because, I hear the argument sometimes, well, I'll just stay at home and do church.
Right.
You can.
Yeah.
You can do that. And thank God for the technology, even here at our church and other churches, which allow you the opportunity to engage with an online community. But you need that interaction with people. I know of someone, we were talking before the cameras went on about, know a guy who's he doesn't have anybody in his life to tell him that he's wrong. And so he has become so distrustful of any kind of instruction.
Right.
Because he can't handle the criticism, because nobody's ever told him that he was wrong. And everybody needs that.
We do.
You need to be held accountable at times to say, listen, you're probably going too far here. You're spending too much time here.
Exactly.
You're not engaging enough here. I've been worried about you. We try to do that here at the church at times. You don't see people for a couple of weeks. You got to find out where that's going on.
Exactly.
Because it could be that they're drifting.
Right.
They're getting farther and farther out in the water. And if you're not careful, the undercurrent's going to take them away, and then you won't see them again. So I think it's really, really important that you have people in your life, and you said a moment ago about seeking them out. You and I both do coaching as a vocation. And I always say, I refuse to. I don't go out and find people to coach. I'm just not going to do that.
Yeah.
Somebody going to call me up and say, hey, listen, I need a coach in my life. I need somebody to help me with a particular area where I need to be developed. And that's the way I think mentoring works. So what I hope happens at Lake Erie is that we can elevate spiritual leadership in a way that people who need it will go find it and say, hey, Pastor said you're an elder, Pastor says you're an SLT, Pastor says, you're a staff member, and I need some help. I need help raising my kids, I need help with my money, whatever.
Exactly.
And I just need somebody that's wiser, who's walked a little bit ahead of me, that knows a little bit.
Right.
I love the passage in 2 Corinthians where Paul says, we are comforted in order that we may comfort others with the same comfort we ourselves receive, which basically means what you've gone through in your life, you went through for you, but you also went through it for somebody else, so that you'll be able to say to them, hey, I know where you are, and here's what I did, or here's what can help you.
We need each other.
We do.
And that's why, it's one of those things where God sends people, kind of to your initial point. And I love how you're sharing with us that spiritual leaders are lifeguards. They are someone who tells us the truth. It's not always what we want to hear, it's what we need to hear. They encourage our gifts, and they give us the direction that we need. And then also, the scriptures from Sunday were in the book of Hebrews, talking about remembering and obeying our spiritual leaders.
Yeah.
That obedience part's not always easy.
It's not.
And,
it's not.
Even like with your example, we don't always want to be told, things, but we have to recognize when we are getting stuck, when we're getting in our own ways, and we need to be pulled from our way. And that's where a spiritual leader can really help you. They can help you see where you might be walking in pride, and you and I were talking about, how pride can be easy to see in somebody else, difficult to see in yourself. And it could be a simple tweak that could really step you into that next level of transformation in your life. And further to that point, when I like to tell my clients, in order to identify pride in their lives so they can become self-aware and get unstuck even as they, go through things in life, is to see pride as self-righteousness. I know what is right, but this seems right to myself. That's how you can notice that you might be in something. And that's where a spiritual leader, in the way that you're sharing with us, can really help you to see what, be a mirror for you, to help you to see what you can't see in yourself so that you can go to that next level.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were speaking about a man who he's not living any longer, but he was that person in my life. And there were times when he would pull me aside and he would say, no, listen, I love you, but I'm going to tell you what you need to hear right here.
Yes.
And that is, you don't want to die on this mountain.
Right. That's good.
You're overextended here. You're emotionally invested here.
That's good.
And you don't want to die on this mountain. It's not worth it. Live to fight another day.
Right.
And he would say, back off.
Yeah.
You may be right in the way that you feel about it, but you're taking it to a point now where you're going to be overextended. He'd say you're climbing out too far on the limb.
Yeah.
You need to come back.
Right.
And And I didn't always like it.
No.
But boy, as I've grown older, I realized how he was watching for my soul. You know, when the Bible talks about spiritual leaders in that Hebrew passage, they're watching for your soul
Yes.
in order that they may give an account, which tells me that the spiritual leaders of our church are going to answer to God. They're going to
Amen.
stand before
They
God, and
are.
God is going to say, why did you let that take place? Why did
Exactly.
you let that person fall off?
Right.
Why did you let them get pulled away with that when you had a chance
Yeah.
to perhaps help them to move forward in that? So the value of spiritual leaders is
great.
almost impossible to overemphasize
No, it
because we
is.
all need them.
We
No
do.
matter how long we've been serving the
Yeah.
Lord, you know.
And so how do you recommend just like showing us how to walk this out here at Lake Erie Church, or even, to anybody who's watching at a different church? What do we do to engage a spiritual leader? Like, how do you go about finding one?
Okay, so this is so simplistic, but it's the way I think you have to pay attention.
Yeah.
Watch for people who demonstrate and exhibit the characteristics that you're looking to emulate.
You want to go up to that
Yeah,
level.
so, maybe, so here's a perfect example. There's a guy in my life that I'm about 10 to 12 years older than he is. And so he was watching me parent my boys. And he came to me and he said, would you help me be a good father? And I'm like, what? He said, I never had a father in my life. My father left. I don't have a model. And he said, I've been watching you. I love the way you parent your boys. Would
That's
you?
wonderful.
And then years later, he came to an event where I was being honored, and he was one of the presenters, and he said, I am the father that I am today because I had a spiritual father
Yes.
who taught me. And I saw you have to pay attention to the people that are around you. This goes back to what I said at the beginning. Pay attention to the people that are around you, because God is providing you with people around you who are going to help you.
Yep.
But they're not going to find you. You're going to have to find them.
Because they don't know you need help.
That's right. You've got to go to them, and you've got to be open enough to say, here's another example. You got to be open to say, I need help. I was appointed as an administrative bishop in 2002 to the state of Louisiana. Now, I had served 18 years before that in what I call state youth work. So I was doing youth camps and youth conferences and church training and worker training, whatever. But I'd never been the bishop. I'd never been the guy in the big seat. Never had to make the big decision.
Right.
And so when I was appointed to Louisiana, at that particular time, there was another man that I knew who was finishing 16 years as a bishop, and he was retiring, still in good health.
Yeah.
And I went to him and I said, Dr. Stone, would you teach me how to be an administrative bishop? I've never been one. I don't know what that's like. Obviously, they have confidence I can do it, but I've never done that before. And he was like, it'll be an honor to do that. And he spent the next 6 years just teaching me. And so many of the things that now I get credit for, I have to say, that wasn't not me.
Wow.
That was Lynn Stone,
Yeah.
who became a mentor in my life and who decided he would deposit into me. And I would just say this for any of the spiritual leaders out there. You're a spiritual leader in your church or in your family or whatever it may be. Don't die with all the wisdom that you have
Amen.
gained
That's
and
power.
not deposit it to somebody.
Right.
You need to be giving yourself away every day if you can
Yeah.
to people who need that.
Exactly.
And so that pay attention and then ask for help.
Amen.
Don't be afraid to go to somebody and say, hey, I need help doing this. I'm trying to raise my kids. I'm trying to start a business. I'm trying to manage my finances, whatever it may be. I'm trying to work through this spiritual experience in my life, but be willing to say, okay, I'm going to take advice from you. I want you to help me and work through that piece of that puzzle. And don't be so self-sufficient that you think you can't, that you can do it by yourself, because you can't.
You can't.
We all need each other,
We do.
and we need to do that together.
It takes a lot of courage.
It does.
To ask. It takes a lot of humility. You really have to humble yourself, because then you have to choose to allow that person to serve in that role that you've asked them to serve in.
And it's a high honor. I have several young men that I'm helping, young pastors that I'm helping now. And usually when those Zoom calls end, a lot of times I will just say, God, I'm so grateful that I lived long enough to be able to deposit.
Right.
Because there's so many things I've learned in life, and you didn't think about it at the time, but you realize you learned that for a reason.
Yes.
There was a reason why you failed in that, or there's a reason why you succeeded, or whatever it is in that regard. And you want to use that experience to help somebody.
It's your equipping.
Yeah. There are great mothers who could help young mothers. I see some of the Sherry, we have a lot of single moms at
Yes.
Lake Erie, and I have a heart for them. Shelley and I have such a heart for single moms. And I want so badly for these single moms to realize they don't have to fight this battle by themselves. No. There's a lot of great moms in the church that would love to come alongside you and help you to, because they've done it.
Yeah.
They've lived, as I say, and I know you have teenagers, but I always say all the time, I know people that have raised teenagers and lived through it. They've done that. And so why not lean on some of the wisdom and knowledge, of that, because it'll help you in the end.
Yeah. I have one more question about this.
Okay.
So let's say that you've found this spiritual leader and they're giving you all of this amazing advice and you're struggling to come under, in the relationship, the dynamic, and you want to listen to them, but you find yourself struggling to follow the wisdom that they're giving and the guidance. What would you encourage somebody through that kind of situation with?
I think I would start with the question, why?
Yeah.
Why are you not allowing these people to help you? What's going on inside of you? Is there a resident insecurity in you that cannot take counsel from somebody else? What's churning inside of you that makes you feel like I can't, submit to that? I'd start with that. The other thing I think I would do is recognize that a lot of times we have such a drive inside of us to succeed that we almost trap ourselves by thinking, well, I can figure this out myself. I don't have to have anybody help me. Yeah. I mean, I have people in my life, they won't let you help them.
No.
They won't. I want to help them, but I've just basically said, okay, they're not going to let you help them. So
I'm married to one of those people.
Yeah, I'm not. They just won't let you help them, and so you just have to let them go. But, I think, ask yourself why you're not willing to take advantage, because, these people are in your life for a reason.
Exactly.
And God's trying to help you to succeed at what you're trying to do, so why not give them the opportunity to help you?
And God very likely sent them. So this is an answer to a prayer, that kind of thing. And also asking yourself, what could come of this? In what way could getting uncomfortable and stepping out and doing what they're, counseling me to do, in what way could that get me to where I want to be?
Absolutely.
Because it's a matter of self-awareness, like we were talking about.
Absolutely. Well, I want to just finish up by saying what a great session this has been. Yes. And Sherry, thank you for what you do. You're doing such a great job with this. I've been at Lake Erie as the senior pastor for 5 years now, and I take that responsibility so seriously because I know I'm accountable, and God is trusting me to lead. But that same principle applies to every other spiritual leader that I'm talking to today. You may be the spiritual leader of your home. You may be a leader on your job. You may be a leader in your school. Recognize that God is positioning you in a way to influence the environments and the places there where you're leading. And don't be afraid to lead. The world needs leadership. And sometimes the void, the absence of leadership is what creates the chaotic situations that we see in society. But make yourself understand how important your leadership is. And if you're somebody who needs leadership, you're a new believer, you're a new parent, you're a young adult, and you need somebody in your life, don't be afraid to ask for help. I can tell you, as one that is much older than some of you, I'm ready to help. All you have to do is ask. And if you do that, you're going to find people that are willing to help you. So hope this has been very helpful, Sherry, today. I believe it's been very positive.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to being here with you again next week.